Everyone, it's the 22nd of November 2024. I'm Gary Waterman, a former UK police constable. Welcome to my part 3 of the Department of Work and Pensions research. Please verify and corroborate this information to see that it is true. All I've done is taken screenshots from the evidence and pasted it into a document so that everyone can see it easier. This document and all of my others can be made available to you. I have a public document file, and you can get that by emailing me at GaryTheTruthSetsUsFree@gmail.com. That's Gary with one R, the truth sets us free, at gmail.com. Or I've got another email, which is GaryTimeForFreedom@proton.me. That's Gary TimeForFreedom@proton.me. You can also go on my Telegram channel, Gary The Truth Sets Us Free. And you can also go onto my YouTube, which you may be looking at now, which is Gary Time for Freedom. My Facebook is Gary Waterman with a picture of me jumping with a mountain in the background. So I didn't think things could get any more interesting, but wait until you see the following bits of the document which I've put together after part 2. So what I've done here is search on the left here within Google Department of Work and Pensions, and it's brought up DWP Services Limited. So on the right, we're going into that record on Companies House. And for those of you who haven't looked at this before, you've got these tabs. Depending on what device you're looking at it on, you might have them horizontally across the screen on a laptop, or like mine on a phone, it may be vertically like this. And we're going to be clicking on these tabs to look through the Companies House records. So you've got Overview, Filing History, and People. They're the main ones that we look at. So at the moment, we're on the Overview. And you can see immediately on the address here, we've got McGill's, and we're going to come to that in a minute. McGill's, Oakley House, Tetbury Road. So let's go through, and we're within the people record on the right, and you have a Lindsay Kitson, and you can see her name at the top here, Lindsay. See where you just clicked on her name, and then you look into her companies, and she's linked to DLMM Properties Limited. And on the right, we're just looking at the incorporation document now for it, and you can find that in the filing history. And on the incorporation document, you have McGill's again, okay? Same address. So what we've now done is search on the right within Companies House. We've put in McGill's, and it brings up McGill's Limited of the same address. You can see it at the top right here, so I've just highlighted it. So we're going to go and look at that company. Now remember, where there's these links, that means there's a financial and legal connection through them. So it's very important that it all needs to be lawful. And here's McGill's Limited. And then on the right here, we're looking into the incorporation document. And you can see John Carter of Temple Professional Services Limited. Well, that has already featured in my research. I think it was Max Clifford or Jeffrey Epstein, one of those two, that featured in. And you can go and look at both of those documents. Max Clifford document research that I've done, and Jeffrey Epstein, although I am updating that a little bit. But I do suggest, if you haven't looked at my stuff before, go and research and look at the World Trade Center disaster document, the first one, because there is a guide within there, and it talks you through all of the evidence, explains it all. You can verify and corroborate, use it as a template, and also look at the BCP Council document. Once you've had a look at those and you sort of understand where the illegal entities are, you'll then see them throughout all of the other documents. So you'll be able to see that it is a centralized criminal system by our governments, 100%. Completely criminal financial system they've got in place against their own laws. Now on the incorporation document, just to see, you have got Temple's nominees and Temple's professional services. So into McGill's people record again on the right, and we have Simon Nuttall. And he's linked to Ormiston Properties on the left, and then we're clicking on it and going into it on the right. Based in Edinburgh, according to this. And on the incorporation document, you have FS Moore Limited. That has featured in the fraud. There's also McFarlane's, which has also featured in the fraud. On the right here, into Ormiston Company, we've got Brian Collette on the right. So we're looking at Brian Collette now. He's got 436 records. And one of them on the right here is Genesis Oil and Gas Limited, of an address of St Paul's Churchyard. That's featured in the frauds, because what they're doing is they're using they're using the same addresses and variations of addresses to try and avoid accountability and liability. 788, 790 Finchley Road is a classic example of that. If you type in the Ham and High Finchley Road fraud, you will see that being linked to dictatorships, corrupt politicians, mafia, and defrauding the public through the taxation system. Just reading through. So we're looking at this company now, Genesis Oil and Gas. And on the incorporation documents is ICC company formations. You'll see that links to the Maxwells, Robert Maxwell, and you can go and see that on the World Trade Center disaster document. On the right here, the same person, so all we're doing is going back into that same person record and looking at their other companies. You have a company called the Humane Society International UK, and what I'm finding, these Freemasons appear to love doing things in inversions. So wherever you see something that appears to be good, it actually appears to be part of this system of corruption. And on the left here, they're also part of the Chess Hunt Hotel operating company. So we're on the right, we're just going into that company, and the address I immediately recognize as being linked to the fraud here, and another company, BDO LLP. You'll see that throughout my research of an address in Liverpool. And when we go into it, you can see it's in liquidation. Okay, so as this is all being exposed, they are closing the companies down because they're panicking. And it was incorporated, you can see, 2 months after the World Trade Center disaster on the left-hand side, second box down, incorporated 2 months after the World Trade Center disaster. On the right, the same director, Brian, is linked to Dutch European Partners. Okay. And you can see when he was appointed on the right, before the World Trade Center disaster on the 1st of September 1999, and just prior to the World Trade Center disaster, he resigned from the company. If we go into Dutch, you can see that they are also linked on the left, an address that features throughout the fraud, and also a company, KPMG Restructuring, that features throughout the fraud. On the right, the same director, Brian. Again, we're just still looking at Brian, just going back. You can see Virgin. We now hit the Virgin companies. As we know, Virgin Foundation, we may not know, but Richard Branson has been named within the court papers, I believe, for the Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein trial. And you can see on the right here that they were appointed on the 19th of July 2001 and resigned on the 27th of July 2001. That's the exact same month, according to the research, that Larry Silverstein purchased the lease for the World Trade Center building, and it was the only time that it ever changed hands in its 31 years of history. And of course, the disaster happened in September that year. So here we have Virgin Radio Asia. And we're looking at them, and you can see the company was actually incorporated at that time, the same month that Larry Silverstein purchased the World Trade Center. And it dissolved in 2010. And going into Brian again, we now start hitting aerospace companies. I'm only showing you some of this, okay? You obviously haven't got enough time to put every single relevant part and fraud all the way through. But there's significant information shown to show that it's all completely corrupt. And this starts linking in then to aerospace and military type companies on the left here. Brian, another Virgin company, Virgin Holdings Limited on the left. And I found this interesting. So on the right here, he's linked to Firearms Research Limited. So a firearms company, presumably. Let's look at that company. Here it is. And they're a fraudulent company, because on their incorporation document, they have Swift Incorporations Limited on the left and Jordans and Sons. Swift Incorporations and Jordans and Sons, they are linked to the same companies that started up Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited, where I was a director, and was removed for refusing to file forged bank documents appearing to have been produced by Lloyds Bank, and where information was leaked to prime suspects that I had already named, and the police force that I used to work for provided 2 emails confirming that they were inadvertently confirming, but I knew they had because I was in the police for 18 years, confirming they were allowing those forged bank documents to be produced and used in circulation. Same company, Brian, here on the left, links to Stagecoach Limited, and I'd already seen an article, bearing in mind we're talking about human trafficking, child abuse, and very awful things with fluid taken from children, and even worse than that, murder, let's face it, with all of the evidence here. On the right here, you can see an article, human trafficking charges against Stagecoach tycoon are dropped. This was from October 2024, so it's very recently. And I'll just read it. It says on the left, human trafficking charges against Scottish transport tycoon Dame Anne Gloag have been dropped, the Crown Office has said. Well, the Crown is linked to this. So, of course, they will not be prosecuting high-profile individuals that are massively linked to this fraud. On the right here, we have John Dilger, and he's linked to Dragon Nominees Limited. Okay, and this is, remember, we've got Dragon Fire, which is a directed energy weapon. Anyone can just type in Dragon Fire and you'll see supposedly a real weapon. We're led to believe it's a real, like a laser weapon, I suppose you'd call it. Most people call it. Anyway, going into the Dragon Company on the right, we have BB Ali, linked to Project Black Companies, okay? Project Black Dissolutions. Now, there's loads of them. I've only just shown 2 of them. Okay, Project Black Dissolutions, different companies, you can see it. And they were started in 2022. Okay, as I'm starting to starting to raise concerns and questions within my company after a roofing project. Okay, so I'm starting to ask about the accounts. And these companies are started up. Project Black Dissolutions. Now, when you type in Project Black on Google, it comes up with several things. But first of all, Wikipedia entry, Black Project, okay? And then Project Black Fund closes. And we're going to look at both of these. The first one. Black Project. It's an informal term used to describe a highly classified top secret military or defence project that is not publicly acknowledged by government, military personnel or contractors. In the United States, the formal term for a black project is an unacknowledged special access program. Black projects receive their funding from the black budget. Now, I was first made aware of this a few months ago, and it was whilst my wife and I had separated from our home address because I believed my wife was also in danger in all of this. Now, it turns out that she probably wasn't, but I certainly was. And we were parked up and getting some water because we left the house and we were living in a van because I realised how big this was going. Buxton, beautiful part of the world. Buxton near the Peak, or in the Peak District actually. And whilst I was there getting some water, I don't think it was a coincidence. Someone started having a big conversation with me for about 2 hours. We were talking, and he started talking about black projects. And we were talking about the fraud because I'm quite open about it all. I'm not trying to hide anything. You know, I'm transparent. You know, I know they'll be monitoring everything I'm doing, and I need to know that it's up. Okay. But this person that was speaking to me knew a lot of information, and they were talking about black projects. And they said, be careful because they'll kill you over what you're exposing. And he made a point of saying they'll slash you with 1,000 cuts. And you can see he looked me in the eye. And I even said to my wife at the time, I believe he was an agent. Yeah, absolutely. I believe he was positioned there and someone may have assisted in giving my location at that point. But I won't go into that more detail. But yeah, they clearly wanted to scare me, and I said, well, I'm a man of faith, so as long as I'm doing the right thing, I'll be all right, even if they kill me. So that's the first thing I really heard about black projects, but let's read on. So black projects. So the second one, okay, Black Project Fund. Let's have a look at this. Here we go, and it comes up with this. Ariel Investments. And you can see on the right, this is from the CEO, Leslie A. Brun, co-founder, chairman and CEO of Ariel Alternatives, and it's dated the 1st of February 2023. Well, that's very significant as I'm making all of my reports to the authorities, okay, about all of this fraud. And you can see the subject is Project Black Fund closes, okay, Ariel Alternatives. But interestingly, further down in the article, here we are, first JP Morgan, Chase and Co. committed to co-invest in this project. Well, that is very important because JP Morgan is linked to the Fleming family, who are linked to Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited. And one of those family members was the one who called the meeting to remove me as a director for refusing to file the forged accounts. Okay, and they're linked to the intelligence agencies, the police, international child trafficking, adrenochrome, fraud all the way through the energy sector via Tesla, also to it appears to pharmaceutical industries. So massively relevant in relation to this. And here we are, we now have a connection now to Black Project around this date. So let's look at Ariel on Companies House. And on the right, I've literally typed in Ariel Alternatives, sorry, and it comes up with these on the right. And here we are, we have Ariel Limited, and it was registered in February 2023. You can see on the right there. So we can see that the dates tie up because this article is from February the 1st, 2023. And here we are, we have Ariel Limited registered on the 13th of February 2023. So we're going to look at this company now, and it's important to note that it's based on the Isle of Man, according to this. You can see on the right there the address, Isle of Man. It's very relevant. It's classed as an offshore tax haven location. There's very significant information coming in regarding Isle of Man and the islands around the UK. In fact, there was an informal parliamentary group set up by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight MP, Bob Seeley, and that links very closely to Ghislaine Maxwell. So let's look at Ariel Limited, and again you can see registered February 2023, and on the incorporation document you have an address, and you can look at this. It's page, what's that, page 8 of 13. I'm only showing you some of the pages. You have an address in Jerusalem, Israel. Now this is hugely significant because what we are looking at is a huge conspiracy against mankind, a huge deception and targeting of humanity. Potentially they're trying to fulfill a false prophecy, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to do a second video, another video specifically about the Bereshit prophecy and a huge deception against humanity and specifically Christians, and we're going to talk about that. It's very, very relevant. So here's Ariel Limited, again, just to show you, they are hiding the directors and secretaries on the left there. When you click on people, there are no officer details available for this company. That's very unusual. There's only a few that I've seen where that happens. And of course, Companies House, one of their main roles is to provide information about companies, not hide it. So this is where they're getting worried, I believe, and they're trying to stop people seeing the information about these companies and therefore avoid accountability and liability for what they're part of. And all these black projects, I suspect they're actually all to target mankind, and international collaboration with governments through the taxation system to make it appear as though they're doing black projects, military-based purposes, but actually to continue defrauding the public through the taxation system. It'll be worth trillions of pounds. You'll already see, hopefully, from other evidence that Russia, Ukraine, my company, America, US, and most international governments appear to be linked to the same companies very, very quickly, including the same weapons companies, same oil companies. Most of them are fraudulent, not even lawful companies, directed energy companies, weapons companies. It's just one massive theatre and show to deceive the public. It's huge. And of course, that means there's no motives to stop any of the world's problems. And in fact, they want to keep showing, and they may be showing that there's more problems than there are, because they want to justify getting more tax going in through the system so they can feed their addictions or get their yachts or properties with all their families and friends. And it's massively Freemason deception, a huge Freemason conspiracy. So on the right here, back into Dragon Company, we've got John Rhodes. He was appointed in July 2002, not long after the World Trade Center disaster. And they're linked now to Stonehenge Fleming law. Remember, we've already said about the Flemings. Here we are. This has already been connected via previous documents to JP Morgan and to the Flemings, and therefore back to my company, and very closely linked to my company indeed, through some of the documents I have. So on the right here, the same person linked to Vision for a Nation Foundation. Thought that'd just be interesting. And this is very relevant now. So bearing in mind we're talking about black ops, black projects, potentially hidden budgets. I mean, that obviously gives them the ability to pocket all of the tax money, doesn't it? Or a lot of the tax money themselves, you see. Because don't forget, if you've been following my evidence, the banks are being allowed to produce the forged bank documents for fraudulent entity companies to falsify their figures and send them real money into offshore accounts. It's a whole, and I say this with absolute certainty, people, bearing in mind I was a police officer for 18 years, we have been living under an imposed criminal system for a very, very long time, and it's all coming to a head now. It's very much I'll say biblical. It's certainly a spiritual moment, but there's been huge deception, it appears, through religion as well, and we're going to talk about that, as I've said. Very important that people understand that. So anyway, here we have the Lister Institute of Preventative Medicine. Now, bearing in mind what's been going on over the last few years, I don't need to say anything about that, but since 2019 in China. So this company is an old one. It started in 1891. Okay, so it was about 1844 is when Companies House started. So it's a few years afterwards. You can see on the bottom right there, it's other research and experimental development on natural sciences and engineering, and it's a fraudulent entity company. Looking at the incorporation document, it has Jenner Institute of Preventative Medicine. And you can see this document, don't forget, and you can use it as a template and go and research it. Well, that's page 4 of 20. Just to confirm, so this is one that's on the incorporation document, Jenner Institute of Preventative Medicines. But the company name, the only one that's actually been registered, is this one on the right, the Lister Institute of Preventative Medicine, in brackets there. So it's a criminal, fraudulent, illegal entity company, and of course our governments would have known exactly what they were doing. On the right here, just a bit of information in relation to this company. So this is their website, the Lister Institute. It was originally established in 1891 at the British Institute of Preventative Medicine. This is interesting. The institute was originally established with 2 primary aims: to undertake fundamental scientific research into the causes, prevention and treatment of disease in man and animals, and to prepare and supply special protective and curative materials such as vaccines and antitoxins. Until 1914, the Lister Institute was the only organisation of its kind in the country and was ranked internationally with the Pasteur Institute in Paris and the Rockefeller Institute in New York. Specific, isn't it? Very relevant. Initial funding came from a variety of sources, including philanthropic donations from individuals and trusts, as well as the provision of a site on the Chelsea Embankment by the Duke of Westminster. A major donation was also made by the Earl of Iveagh, sorry I'm pronouncing that wrong probably, I'm not even going to try, head of the Guinness family, which enabled the Institute to develop operations and underlies our long-standing close association with the Guinness family. Okay, we're going to come to that in a minute. So Ireland, huge connection to Ireland. Reading on here, in 1984, a highly significant discovery was made by Sir Alec Jeffreys, one of the first Lister Fellows, okay, when he discovered that no 2 people other than identical twins had the same DNA fingerprint. Now, we have to consider that is all fraudulent and deception, because we have a fraudulent entity company that person was part of, lies and deceit. It's not even lawful. Remember, this company should never have even been trading. Because they're not registered lawfully, that means they should never trade. You can't have an unlawfully registered company legally trading. It's just not possible. Reading on here, new funding direction. In 2002, 1 year after the World Trade Center disaster, a major downturn in the stock market and emerging competition from a variety of other bodies forced the closure of the existing funding scheme for new applicants. Interesting. Going into the company on the right, again, we've obviously spoken about the Guinness family. Here's somebody with the surname of Guinness, Rory Michael Benjamin McGuinness. He's got a date of birth of 1974. There does appear to be disproportionately many people around the year 1971-ish, and that's when the World Economic Forum started. Okay, I think that's very relevant. Here they were appointed in 1998. Well, that's 3 years before the World Trade Center disaster, and when the special advisor for the UK prime ministers, the last few of them, started up, according to the research, fever sex parties. Remember, there is a huge connection to sex trade, child trafficking, child abuse, you name it, sexual immorality, and just no morality at all, really, with all of this, is there? Let's face it, appears to have gone out of the window completely for these people. Anyway, on the left here, we have Murray Legg, and they are linked to Global Data PLC, so potentially the collection of worldwide data linked to this system of fraud. You can see how this is all tying in. And you can see on the going into the company on the right, they were incorporated there on the right in February 2000, the year before the World Trade Center disaster. Let's have a look at their previous company names on the overview. So you can see they were called the Mutual Net PLC, February 2000, changed their name in 2006. And then later, the top one here, Progressive Digital Media Group PLC. See, I suspect the digital age is to secure complete control of humanity and eventually full digital enslavement through digital currency as well. On the incorporation document further down, on page, what page is that? I'm not too sure actually, I can't read what it is. But you have some companies here, and one of them is Hague Limited. I just circled that because I thought it would be relevant. Hague is where the European courts are based, isn't it? In Hague, as far as I'm aware. On the right, when we search Hague, so I've just gone into Companies House separately and just search Hague Limited, and it comes up with this, TMN Media Limited on the right there. And we're going to look at that company now. Here it is, TMN Media Limited. And you can see on the right here, it was incorporated in May 1999, 2 years before the World Trade Center disaster, and it dissolved on the 12th of November 2019, just before the outbreak of the, I won't say it, but you know what, in China, which was in December 2019. Into TMN Media, on the left here, we've got Craig Dixon, and they are linked to music industry companies, or a music industry company, the Telstar Music Group Limited. I'm only showing you some of these, but also they're linked to Virgin Group Limited. Here's Virgin Group Limited on the right, so we've just clicked on the company, going into it, Virgin Group Limited. And you can see here the company name changes, and Virgin Voyager Limited. Hopefully you're aware of that. I'm old enough to remember that was about flying into space, I believe. And it appears as though it has a forged incorporation document. Look at the angle of the writing there. Look at the way the lines are missing in the background. Okay, it's not consistent and uniform with the rest of the document here, which is all on the line, on the lines, etc. And this company, Hallmark, is featured throughout the fraud. On the right there, within the same company, Clive Sinclair Poulton. Poulton? Recognise that name. And they are linked to Anglo Tanzania Gold Limited. I just thought that was interesting, so I put that in there. But also the Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies. Okay, the Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies. Now this is interesting. The Freemasons have most certainly infiltrated all religions as a massive deception and corruption against humanity. If we look at the Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies, you can see they're mocking Jesus. I believe this is probably not even a real address. I'm not sure. I haven't checked it. Wesley House, Jesus Lane. And then on the incorporation document, you can see here it's all different writing all the way through it. But interestingly, look, they've stamped over with with a stamp, obviously, over the company behind. So it appears to be a forged document. You can't go back and forge it and change it later. But importantly, it's D&D Law Agency Services. Well, that massively links to the fraud. And it also links to Tommy Robinson via his previous name. Please come back and watch part 4 of the Department of Work and Pensions. God bless you all.